Welcome to the World Nomads Podcast, delivered by World Nomads, the travel lifestyle and insurance brand.
There's something about the islands here that touches people's souls.
Hopefully we're making an impact in the world that people will stop killing and culling sharks.
It looked like snot and it smelled bad, but then let that put you off. It was good for you.
What else in the world you're going to see the condor 3 meters right in front of you?
No, absolutely.
There.
I'm not sure if I want to see the condor 3 meters in front of me.
So many things in our society that are throwaway, and we see those things on our beaches, on our coastline.
Has anyone ever pooped themselves?
Sometimes the Germans can come off as cold.
I think it's important to remember what has happened, but also look forward to into the future and be positive about it. And that's, I think, what Germans are.
It offers travellers the opportunity to teach English to children and experience the Panamanian... Oh, that's going to be...
So, speaking of teaching English...
I've got to learn to speak it.
We were all told that you can't take a leak into the river. You can't urinate into the river because there's a parasite that will swim up your urine stream.
Yeah, Phil, you are...
An idiot?
It's not your usual travel podcast. It's everything for the adventurous, independent traveller.
And I think it was, Minora and Majora, I think they are, and they are very popular with Italian tourists, but they're just not in the Western guidebook.
They can't be called that.
Yeah. Downstairs stuff. No. Okay, but the opposite of that. They were beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. And
I know Kim's lost it. Kim's gone all anatomical and she's lost it. Anyway.
There's no place called that. Sure.
There is.
Yeah, it's Minori and Maori. Yeah, it's M-I-N.
Yeah, but that's
Minori.
not what Phil said.
Okay, all right then.
All right, let's get back to what guidebook were you looking at? I absolutely love that. That would have to be one of the all-time greatest bloopers.
Oh, it makes me laugh every time. As I was explaining before, it's like that you are on it straight away, and it's that slow realisation of what I've actually said.
I tell you what, before you even hear from me, my eyes were popping. I could not believe it. And if you don't know what we're getting at, then you haven't listened in your sex ed classes.
No, that's right.
Welcome to the Best of the World Nomads podcast, as we look back at not only 2018, but some of the highlights from when we first launched in 2017. That was actually a classic from a chat with Madeline, who runs Italy Beyond the Obvious, a travel planning service that is just for Italy. And it was during that podcast we spoke with Elena, who ate a sandwich in Italy that made her cry. A little bit like that blooper.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about food in Italy is that it's so fresh and so much of it is local because Italians take this incredible pride in their food. So in Cinque Terre, they have what is traditionally called poor food. They say that it's very simple food, but it's just, you take a couple ingredients like lemons, basil, potatoes, and some anchovies, and you throw it all in a dish, and it's just exquisite. These people know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a real family experience too, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, actually at one of the, I spent several afternoons in kitchens in Cinque Terre on this trip, and one of the times I was in the kitchen with 3 generations. So I had a grandmother, a daughter, and her granddaughter all in the kitchen together, and we were cooking, and it was wonderful. It was very Italian to have all the family there.
Tell me about pizza. Did they really invent pizza, the Italians?
I don't actually know the answer to that entirely.
Hang on, Elena. Phil will. Phil knows everything.
Tell me, Phil.
Yes, the margherita pizza is very definitely an Italian invention because it's the colours of the Italian flag.
Right,
okay. The white cheese, the red tomato base, and the green basil leaf, or basil leaf, as you want. And it was invented as a dish for Queen Margherita, hence it's called margherita.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Is there anything Phil doesn't know?
I'm sorry.
I have heard that story, but it's one of those things you have to wonder if it's an Italian myth. But I know that they're, and particularly in Naples, they've come up with a whole, definition of what a pizza is, and it's pretty a touchy topic depending on where you go.
I was there a couple of years ago, and I've got young kids. They would have been 5 and 9 at the time, so it was pasta one day, pizza the next. for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With gelato at the end of every one of them. But, we were doing a lot of walking too. And they said the best pizza they have ever had in their lives was in Naples. Oh, of course.
Well,
the home.
Of course. Yeah. What are some of the rules? I've been told you can't have a cappuccino with a meal.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of rules, and it takes some time to learn them when it comes to food etiquette in Italy. The cappuccino for sure is one. I love a good cappuccino. It's something I definitely picked up in Italy, but you are supposed to have it on its own, perhaps with a croissant or a piece of toast made with Nutella on it in the morning, but absolutely not with a meal and never after 10 a.m.
Can I ask one question? I mean, you're quite a well-travelled person as well, Elena. So what's your secret to travel? What do you try and do that makes travel the best it can be for you?
Well, for me, I plan all of my travel around food. So maybe I don't pick the city necessarily based on the food, but when I know where I'm going, I will make an itinerary for my day that is essentially what is going to be the best thing I eat that day. And so I'll pick out, what's the best place that makes bread in this city, and then I will start my day there, and I'll get a good coffee and some good toast, and then it's guaranteed to be a good day.
So in all your travels then, which country or which nationality has the best food?
I've got to be partial to Italy, of course.
Correct answer.
I can't even tell you. So I spent 2 weeks in Sicily at one point, which was incredible, and had multiple life-changing experiences when it comes to food. I actually had a sandwich that made me cry.
What?
Yeah, it was so moving. It was the best thing I've ever eaten, and I had the best pizza of my life in Sicily.
Okay, no. What was in the sandwich? Come on.
Oh, it was probably like 20 ingredients. It was not a slap it together sort of sandwich. It was this wonderful little place down in Syracuse, right near the water, and you stand in line, which is the only time you're going to see Italians standing in line for food, because that's very, I think, a California or American thing generally to think food is worth standing in line for. But this place is worth it, and you stand in line, and as you're standing there, there's like a little counter out front, and there's this little old man standing there, and he's there pretty much every day because I follow them on Instagram, so you're guaranteed to meet him pretty much if you go there. And he's there with his whole family. I met them all. There's mother, grandmother, daughter, husband, children running around. And it's the older man that's making the sandwiches. And he's got this whole selection of ingredients in front of him. And he just pulls everything together. And I didn't tell him what I wanted at all. I was like, you just make your sandwich. And it had 6 kinds of cheese on it, probably 4 kinds of meat, a dozen different types of salads and greens, some tomatoes, fresh herbs from the garden nearby. It was
I know what you mean. I'm with you on it.
I can't believe you cried. I cannot believe you cried. That's so cute.
It was embarrassing. I got my sandwich, I took a bite of it, and I had to go sit in a corner far away from the people because I was crying.
Yum. I know what I feel like for dinner tonight. And you've revealed that you're a huge Italian fan.
Yep.
You eat a lot at work, actually. You get Italian takeaway.
Yeah, dude. There's a good one just around the corner. It's pretty great.
You can't go past it. Now, this next chat was one you were a fan of.
Yeah, Dr. Denise Hardesty. She's the principal research scientist and a team leader with CSIRO's Oceans and Atmosphere. Her current research project focuses on plastic pollution and illegal fishing. We spoke to her about the environmental crisis that is the proliferation of single-use plastic after a photo emerged of a tide of plastic floating off Honduras.
It's pretty confronting, I think, to see the amount of plastic in those photos, or, it's not just plastic, it's building timbers and all sorts of things that have really been washed out there. It's an astonishing amount from the photographs that I've seen as well.
All right, and that's partly due to the really bad hurricane season that they've had this year, is that right?
That is my expectation. That seems like the most parsimonious explanation. Sorry, I shouldn't say those sorts of things like that.
No, it's all right. We've got brains. We're okay. We're with you.
No, but I realize I do talk in the geek speak a little bit. Yeah, I mean, my understanding, the first thing I thought when I looked at the photos that they were shown to me was, oh yeah, well, we've just had huge storms come through there. This is clearly a result of those storms washing, destroying buildings, destroying homes, destroying, restaurants and businesses and everything along the waterfronts and in these islands, and that it's washing out to sea and just creating these huge rafts of material floating around out there.
We've had storms here, and just walking to work this morning, and I walk along the beach, there are just pockets of debris, and amongst it are plastic bottles, sunscreen bottles, knives and forks, plastic knives and forks. What sort of stuff did you see?
Well, we find everything from, cigarette butts and beverage containers and cans and broken glass and things like that. Everything from that to toothbrushes and cigarette lighters, all sorts of floating things. We've also found, which I find really interesting, we find intact light bulbs.
What?
In places. Yeah.
How do they end up in the ocean?
Well, I guess they float when they get thrown away. They go down the water and into the ocean.
Exactly. And so those things float as well. And you're going to find those, as you were mentioning on your walk, along the beach this morning, you're going to find those in those accumulating areas, those areas that we call sinks that are basically going to respond or, absorb sort of all the local trash that gets washed up in there. And those, in those sorts of coves and gullyways that are just going to accumulate all that trash that flows down the rivers, gets out into the coastal margin and washes right up on those beaches.
But I guess the most worrying part of all that is the stuff that gets called disposable, but isn't, all that plastic stuff, all the bottles and throwaway cutlery and things like that. That's the biggest concern, right?
Well, the proliferation of single-use items in today's culture is a real problem given waste mismanagement, given actually what the true cost or true value is of these products that we make, use, dispose of. And if you watch one of those videos that shows kind of the making of a plastic spoon and how it gets made and the chemicals that it's used and how it gets packaged and then transported and the miles that it takes to get to a place to end up in a plastic bag in a supermarket so you can buy it for 10 cents, at an individual item, then I think the tagline for one of those videos is it really too hard to wash? That metal piece of cutlery that we use and can reuse. I mean, I have cutlery that sits in my bag. I have bamboo stuff I've had for, 15 years or more. That I can use and reuse, and that works beautifully for me. And I think, when we talk about the single-use items of beverage containers and so many things in our society that are throwaway, and we see those things on our beaches, on our coastlines, along our waterways and rivers, and floating out there in the ocean sometimes.
It's hard as a traveller, though, when you go to countries and you need to watch the water, for instance. So it's very convenient to buy a plastic bottle of water. I guess it then comes down to how responsible you are with that plastic bottle once you've finished with it.
How responsible you are, what you can do around that. In a lot of places, they have the large refillable, 20-liter vessels that you can use. Sure. Many places that we go, if you go to hotels and things like that, you're served things in plastic bottles and things. So I suppose you can make responsible consumer decisions and try to make the choices that are in accordance with your values. And you really can do the very best that you can to make sure that things are disposed of properly and appropriately in places where there isn't clean drinking water and where some of those issues are a really significant challenge.
I think, a lot of people have got the idea about the plastic bottles, and I see lots of people using reusable, refillable drinking bottles, like metal ones or whatever. I figure we just need that sort of consciousness to be spread across other things you do. Like you say, you pack your own knife and fork in your bag. I mean, it's not that hard. You go to the camping store and you get a really lightweight one, can't you?
Yep, you can. I mean, you can get something, or you can get something that's, that's durable, even if it is lightweight. And if you don't want to eat off of plastic, then you can, really, does it weigh that much to chuck a metal fork or a spork or a spoon in your bag and just use that?
Spork. You just took me back to my childhood. Thank you very much for that.
Exactly. Well,
Mum had a really good
in the camping shops.
Mum had a really good set of splades. Do you remember those?
No, I don't.
They were like a little fork with a knife edge on it. Yeah,
yes,
awesome.
I do remember that. Okay, well, we've come up with some solutions, and that's just us three sitting here having a chat. If the world doesn't band together, what's the future of our oceans with this particular problem?
Wow, it's not just going to be our oceans, it's going to be our land, it's going to be our rivers, our streams, it's going to be everywhere, right? I mean, with the proliferation of thin, lightweight plastic items that we use and throw away, our land is going to be full of it, our rivers are going to be full of it, our oceans are going to be full of it as well.
Yeah, we can each do our bit, and I think the message is getting out there. Okay, it's the festing season, so time for some light relief and a look behind the scenes of making the World Nomads podcast. Teach PTY is a social enterprise that offers travellers the opportunity to teach English to children and experience the Panamanian... Oh, that's going to be...
Speaking of teaching English...
I've got to learn to speak it. The Panamanian... Oh, no.
I've done it again.
No, here we go. Third time lucky.
Well, no, it's off the coast of Honduras. Honduras.
And we are in charge of a global travel podcast.
There's been an article doing the rounds recently, and it's shocked quite a lot of people. We were talking about it in the beginning. Just off the Honduran island of Roatan. Can I just say, I can't wait until we get to Iceland.
Oh, Iceland's already causing me sleepless nights. My name is Kim, and the man sitting across from me is Phil, who's kept our listeners waiting 2 weeks for the answer to his travel quiz question. Phil.
Well, it was just too good, wasn't it? Either that or we're,
Hopeless.
Yeah, something or other. We got a bit carried away, and I forgot to mention... Let me turn that off.
Ingo...
Do you want me to help you there?
Yeah, would you mind? I practiced this.
Ingolfur Bjargmundsson. Ingo, how are you, mate?
Plus, we've got Phil's travel news, Ask Phil, and Phil's quiz question.
And now, Ask Phil.
That's for Ask Phil.
Oh, Ask Phil. Hang on, I'm lost.
Ingo Bjargmundsson. No, it's a bit German.
Bjargmundsson.
What is the answer to your quiz question? Hey, we remembered it.
Hang on, where is it? I've forgotten.
You've got to find it.
All right, the name Guatemala is thought to be derived from an ancient Mayan language and means land of many trees. Bit of a hint there about the place being heavily forested, but how much of Guatemala is forest? Guatemala is forest. I'm doing that little bit again. How much of Guatemala?
In 27... Jeez.
No, sorry. Okay. Do you know what? No, stop. No, seriously. We're going to have to take that out.
Oh, no, we are.
We're going to have to take that out for Virgin. They won't let it go.
They won't let it go. No, we'll cut it out.
All right. Okay. And as the famous psychologist Frank Smith says...
He's a psycholinguist.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
As the famous psycholinguist Frank Smith says, one language...
You can't even speak the one you were born with. Oh, Phil, how we end up getting a podcast out each week actually astounds me.
We should have put a collection together of our pronunciations as well.
Oh, that's one we need to work on. We're shocking at that. Look, we couldn't do it without our World Nomads team, along with the guests that we have and our partners as part of our podcast episodes. But this was a favourite of mine with Ellen Hall, our editorial producer in our North American office. She was on the street with Andres Brenner in Argentina.
So I am here with Andres Brenner, and he is our... Well, I will let you introduce yourself. So...
Hello, Ellen. I'm Andres Brenner. I'm 33 years old. I'm from Argentina. I'm a filmmaker and traveler. So basically what I do is I travel around the world and I try to look for interesting stories to share with people. Just travel, find stories, film, and then share them with people, mostly through World Nomads.
Actually, you were one of our film scholarship winners, correct? What year was that?
Yeah, it was in 2013. I applied for the travel filmmaking scholarship and I won, so I went to Mardi Gras, to New Orleans with Brian Rapsey. It was amazing. And it was like a big push for me, the World Nomads filmmaking scholarship. And since then I have been working with World Nomads, and right now I'm shooting micro docs about cultures around the world. So basically what I do is I travel to different countries, I look for stories there, I film these stories, and then when I come back to Argentina, I edit them, and then World Nomads share those stories online.
So, and you are, you say you're from Buenos Aires. You were born here. Is that right?
I am from Buenos Aires. I was born here in Palermo, where we are right now. It's a nice neighborhood. When I was born here, long time ago, it was not. It has been always like a beautiful neighborhood, but it was not as touristic and as fancy as it is right now. So right now I don't live in Palermo anymore. I live a little bit more far away, but I do have Palermo in my heart, you know. Like I used to be what today is Palermo Soho. There used to be nothing here, just houses. So most of the shops and restaurants and bars that we see today here in Palermo Soho, some years ago when I was a kid, there was nothing, only houses. Actually, one of my good friends' house right now is a restaurant here around the corner. So, okay. And I was telling Tim the other day that this square here, which is like the main area of Palermo Soho, is a Plaza Serrano, the Serrano Square. That one, when I was 15 years old, we used to come here and there was nothing. We used to come here with a guitar, you know, to play guitar at night, to have a drink, but it was everything brought by us. There were no bars, nothing.
Wow, because it is really hopping now. It's totally different.
Now is a place where to be. If you go out in Buenos Aires at night, you want to have a drink or you want to eat something, not everything, but many things happen in Palermo Soho.
Yeah, we've been having a great time here. But there's lots and lots of great neighborhoods in Buenos Aires. So where would you suggest that visitors come if they only have a few days? Where can they come and get a really good, authentic Buenos Aires experience?
I think San Telmo is important to go to San Telmo. It's very nice. It's where you can find more of the traditional culture of Buenos Aires, like the tango scene. And also for food, there are some street markets during the weekends. That's an interesting place to get to know you. It's like a must, you know. And then other neighborhoods of the city, of course, Palermo. And then if you have one spare day, one extra day, I would really do recommend to go to Tigre. It's a city, it's like an hour ride in a train, and then there you can take a boat and you can get to visit the thousands of islands that we have here. We have a big river coming down from Brazil, and there's a big delta. This delta finishes in the Rio de la Plata. And between like the delta is formed by thousands of islands, and there is people living there, like locals, and it's very interesting. It's like a completely different experience, but still close to the city, so you can do it in a day tour, and it's very nice. I think Argentina, it's a very interesting country, and it is so big that depending on where you go, you get to see so many different things. For example, when you travel to the north of Argentina, the culture is completely different. It feels like, for people who is not from here, from Argentina, maybe they can feel it like a different country because food is different, the people is very nice there. I think people is nice all around the country, but you see a difference. You see a difference, and the north I love. The Patagonia is amazing also, but Patagonia for me, I think it's more about the landscapes. In the north you get landscapes and you get also the culture and the people.
I don't want to take too much more of your time, but do you have anything about culturally that you think people should know before they travel here?
I think people here is very, very open. Buenos Aires is a very cosmopolitan city. There's many people who speak English, so shouldn't be too difficult to travel to Buenos Aires. And I can recommend for people who loves food to go out. There is kind of two different scenes. There are like the typical fancy restaurants, especially in Palermo, is what we call the Palermo Hollywood style of restaurants. And then you have the traditional restaurants, which we call bodegones. I would definitely recommend travelers to go and try 1, 2, or 3. Some bodegones. The bodegones, they are like old buildings, traditional restaurants. Maybe they have been there for 50 years or 60, I don't know. And you enter a bodegón and you will feel like the walls they speak, because usually they have pictures, articles from the newspapers, T-shirts from football players that are friends of the owner restaurant, so they would hang there. It's like a living museum, you know.
Well, awesome. This is wonderful.
And I want to hear in 2019 more chats outside with that great kind of ambient sound, because you really felt like you were there in Argentina, didn't you?
Yeah, we'll do more of that for sure.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Ellen. Another of our team we catch up with regularly is Christina Ton, the General Manager of the Americas.
Tunsy, as we call her, featured in our episode on the US, where she told us about artisan America and some interesting cowboy culture. We were lucky enough to have her in the studio at World Nomads headquarters in Sydney, which was lovely.
Hello.
Now, listen, like last time we spoke to you, we were talking about, loving places to death, and you said you got to, let go of the bucket list, basically, because you got to start looking for things outside of that. And I remember the comment you actually said, if you like wine and cheese, then basically any village in France will do you.
Yeah.
So, But let's talk about the USA. Okay, you got to tick off those things. You've got to go to New York. It's fantastic. You've got to go to San Francisco. You've got to do those sorts of things.
Aren't you even planning Disneyland?
Because I've got kids, but under protest. All right. Give me a break. Let's talk about where you live for a start. Mm-hmm. You're in East Bay, San Francisco.
I am. Berkeley.
People's
Republic.
Sure. Okay, but it's not really on the tourist trail, is it?
No, not really. I mean, if you read any guidebook on San Francisco, very few will tell you to see what's going on in Oakland and Berkeley. But I think more and more, if you have a special interest, like if you're into food or if you're into skateboarding or into hiking, then you'll know that these are the places that you're going to want to go to. So Oakland is on fire. Scads of restaurants opening up, microbreweries, cideries, coffee shops, coffee roasteries. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's really great.
Now, touching on the microbreweries, and you featured again, well, actually, Christina's been on a couple of the podcasts. It was the Christmas episode when you talked about bees in Brooklyn. And we've had a further conversation about there's actually this sort of growing artisan culture in the US.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I think you'd be really hard pushed to go anywhere in the US where there isn't that element where you can source artisan foods, cheeses, wines, liquors, anything like that. Like the Brooklyn one was the, there's always, the microbreweries, but the bee keepers on the rooftops where in Industrial City or Industry City, ICC, is a little suburb area in Brooklyn where you could go and see all these artisans making the chocolate or the bees. And the bees, the honey is made from different hives that are placed all over Manhattan. Well, actually the 5 boroughs. And they get the combs and they manufacture the honey, and they sell it in these sort of test tube little things. And every batch is going to be different because, of course, bees are spitting out what they're taking in, and sometimes what they're taking in could be like really odd red-colored things. And they had this one honey one year where it was bright red, and they couldn't figure out why honey was red. And it was because right next to the beehive building was a maraschino factory. And so the bees were, hanging out by the sweet stuff outside the factory. And then, of course, out they spit some red stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the big centres are San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York. Give me something else, California-wise. What else have we got there?
Well, actually, some really cute agricultural. People don't think about this with Californians, but there's a lot of cowboy culture. So you go further up north, there'd be a lot of outposts that are they're cattle ranchers driving the herds through the great expanses of northern California, and of course that bleeds into Nevada. And every year in January is the Cowboy Gathering, and it's the official name I'm butchering, but it's the week where cowboys from all over the country come and they do poetry.
The Brokeback Weekend.
It's the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering, and it takes place in Elko, Nevada. It's poetry, but it's also music, seminars, and workshops, and you can go and learn how to make cowboy hats. You can learn how to do rawhide braiding. You can learn how to fix your spurs. It's just amazing. It's a gem in the calendar for visiting California and incorporating Nevada and a bit of that Americana.
But cowboys and poetry?
Yes, because they have a lot of spare time. They spend all their time out as Phil clearly knows from his single source of one film, that, they spend a lot of time out in the range. And so they entertain themselves around the campfire with stories, and they create poetry, and they have a lot of time to reflect when it's off season. So when it's winter, that's the time that they're not out grazing and running their herds. And so it's a really, really strong tradition, and it's just a magical, magical gem. So when people are thinking about coming to San Francisco, don't just come in the summer when it's actually really cold. Maybe come in the winter and do a bit of skiing in Tahoe. Go to the Elko, the Cowboy Gathering, and it's really a fantastic trip just therein. Northern California, another great example of there's a whole volcano trail. Volcanoes, California, who knew? Exactly.
Yeah, my eyes have
my
eyes have popped.
So it's again, I can't emphasize enough. Get off that beaten path. And while I agree, there's some amazing things to see in these iconic places, but please go to Northern California and hop in a car and take that little right turn off of Weed, which is ironic because now it's legal, but Weed, California.
Oh, that's right.
And all up that road, going up through Klamath Falls, up through Bend, Oregon, over and up into the state of Washington, and then you cut back into Seattle, is ringed by volcanoes. And even in the middle of summer, they still have snowcap on them. It's just stunning, stunning stuff. And nary a tourist bus will you find there.
Before we let you go, this is your opportunity to spruik those places. Is there anything else on your list there that you have in front of you that you'd like to share?
I just, there's just so many different things around. It depends what you like. If you're into a bit of Americana, then I am a big fan of the Sturgis Motorcycle Gathering in South Dakota, which happens every year, and it's where all the motorbikers come, and they're driving Harleys and Indians and all kinds of imports, and that's a cultural event that you could incorporate with visiting Devil's Tower, Devil's Monument, Mount Rushmore. So there's a lot of things that you can cluster together. The Harley Museum is in Milwaukee, so you can really combine great stuff in little pockets with the Fermentation Festival. There's great stuff that you can do there. There's Vermont and New England. I'm a big fan of music as a motivator to travel, and a great one to consider is Galax, Virginia, which is the Old Fiddlers Convention.
The Old Fiddlers Convention. And it's, again, a week worth of people doing a competition for money. And they're doing it playing things like the dobro and mandolin and fiddles. And they have flat shoe dancing. And it's outdoor, and you can camp, or you can stay in one of the nearby hotels. But it's out in the middle of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And it's just Americana. And Sounds
it's great.
Cool.
And no one goes there but real people.
Real people. We're real people, aren't we, Phil?
We're real people. Yeah. Yes, I'm an old fiddler myself.
Oh, jeez.
Verb more than noun.
Phil.
Hey, it's awesome to see you down here in World Nomads headquarters, and great to have you on the show again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
If you have an idea for a guest, please email podcast@worldnomads.com.
Yeah, great. You can get us by subscribing on iTunes or download the Google Play app, and you can also yell out to Alexa and Google Home to play the World Nomads podcast, and there it'll be straight away for you.
Yeah, but we'll return in 2019 with more fabulous destinations and amazing nomads. But for now, it's Merry Christmas from the World Nomads team.
Happy holidays.
The World Nomads Podcast. Explore your boundaries.